From the radio jingle to the hashtag, we've certainly come a long, long way in marketing, and that's what we're here to talk about today. My name is Joe O'Brien. I'll be your presenter for today. I'm the Content Development Manager for Edology.com. Edology.com is a wonderful website, gives you career advice and help on education, especially higher education, that can help you accelerate through your career. We'll talk about a bit of that later, but we're here today. We have a special guest, Mr. Cormac Austin, and we're going to deliver a small marketing masterclass for you. So without any further ado, let's introduce our guest for today. Hello, Cormac. How are you?
Hi, Joe. How you doing? Nice to see you again.
I'm very well. Just finished this heat wave, so I'm slightly cooler. It's much nicer to present a webinar when the heat is off our backs a bit, and we can have a nice conversation about all things marketing. This is just a little taster, Cormac, of what they could expect if they're sitting in, one of your lectures, for example. Can you tell the audience a bit about yourself and a bit about your background?
Sure. I'm a principal lecturer at Edology, Joe, so I work across a number of degree programs, including ULaw, LSBF, and University of Wolverhampton. And basically, I have a background in marketing. I've been a marketing practitioner for 20 odd years. I work as a marketing consultant in Northern Ireland, where I'm based, and I'm also a Chartered Institute of Marketing tutor. So I like both the theory and the practice, so to speak.
Okay, so what we did is we asked you a few questions about marketing, kind of, the history of marketing as we know it, where it's gone, in terms of the digital era and where we are now. And we've got a lovely article that we'll share with people after the webinar. I've taken some of the choice sections of that article. We're going to kind of elaborate on some of those topics and discuss them over the next, 20 minutes or half an hour or so. And hopefully people get a taste of what it's like to learn about strategic marketing when they go and do, say, a master's in marketing or an MBA like I did online. So let's start with our first question today, Cormac. We're going to talk about holistic marketing. Holistic is a term that we hear all the time. So what do we really mean by holistic marketing, and why is it seen as so important nowadays?
Holistic marketing is a term that was coined by one of my marketing gurus, Philip Kotler. And when you're studying in one of our courses, you can't miss any references to Kotler. He's written the core text across a number of our programs. And it's basically an idea that organizations of all sizes should adopt a marketing orientation throughout the entire organization, and that it's multifaceted. So he came up with a number of pillars of marketing, holistic marketing, including internal marketing, integrated marketing, relationship marketing, performance marketing. So it's not really just looking at how goods and services are brought to the consumer, but it's looking at how well the notion of value to the end user is described across the organization. And organizations now are becoming a wee bit more tuned in to the importance of holistic marketing. So for example, I was reading somewhere recently there that the Santander marketing director spends about 40% of his time on internal marketing. So it's
Wow.
looking at marketing, not just in terms of the expenditure invested into the activity, but also in terms of the time, the effort, the creativity, the innovation that should pervade the entire organization when thinking about marketing.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's not really just about shouting from the rooftops about your product anymore. I suppose the whole organization has to know how to engage with the consumer, and that's pervasive throughout all departments, from product managers to sales and marketing. I've been in many organizations where, I'm sure people are familiar with this, where it's kind of sales versus marketing, and I've found that internal presentations kind of alleviate that and bring sales and marketing together. I find that those kind of initiatives can be very helpful. I remember at the last company, we got all the salespeople who were the top referrers in the company, and we did a big webinar for the entire company of the importance of referrals and how people who were referred were stronger customers and they stuck longer with us. And actually, that provided a whole new range of solid revenue for us.
Well, there's always the sort of age-old distinction between sales and marketing, and that sort of tensions between the two of them. Salespeople refer to the marketing people as sort of indulgent creative types, and yeah. The marketeers refer to the salespeople as just sort of focused on short-term wins, But it's not just the distinction between those two departments. It's the fact that too often the marketing function has been ascribed to one area within the organization and left there. And in complex organizations, it's all departments and all functional areas that need to have an appreciation of marketing, because that describes the value that you're bringing to the end user. I remember I spent a lot of years in my formative marketing career working for the Irish Tours Board, and every so often we'd bring in a team of consultants. We'd have to remind us to look after the needs of the tourist, and remind that to remind us actually what we were doing, because we worked in a complex organization and there were a complex range of stakeholders. You've got publics, you've got media, you've got the tourism accommodation providers. That's the essence of what we were doing in terms of trying to bring value to tourists was sometimes lost, and it's easy for that to happen. So the holistic marketing approach tries to remind everybody of the value of marketing holistically within the entire organization. So it was, for example, one of the pillars mentioned is performance marketing. So the traditional approach is, you try and measure marketing in terms of its financial value to the organization, whereas in fact, a more holistic approach would look at, the value that it can bring in terms of adding social responsibility and other dimensions. So that's where the current thinking in marketing and the importance of marketing lies.
Well, it's interesting because you often hear people talk about siloed organizations where everyone's kind of in their own what we call verticals and not really looking sideways. I suppose this is one of the best ways to kind of look at that and solve that. If your marketing department can show sales where the money's going and how it's acquiring the leads and how those leads are of a certain quality for the business, then you're going to get along better as a business. You're going to function better. That's only going to lead to better performance, as you say, not only financially, but across the board. So yes, very, very good indeed. Oh, Nutella. A key marketing concept is the 4 Ps. What are the 4 Ps? I'll see if can we remember them from my MBA. Can you explain what these mean?
You're asking a marketing lecture. How should I know? I was going to say no, but we can't. Remember the product, price, place, promotion. And actually that accords with what people's understanding of marketing is, and in terms of what marketers do on a day-to-day basis. So if you ask anybody, what do you think marketers do? Most people will mention the 4 Ps. It's sort of one of those terms that's become ingrained in our collective psyche. And it is a fairly good approximation of what we do in practice. But with competition, technology, and the growth in services, there's some argument now that the term needs to be expanded to encompass, for example, the people who are involved in the delivery of value, the fact that services now are becoming much more prominent in the propositions that we buy from people. So it's not the 4 Ps is a cornerstone of marketing, but current thought tells us that it should be expanded somewhat.
Exactly. I mean, and also when you're studying on your marketing modules, you'll see a whole bunch of theorists have come up with a lot of new acronyms and things. I've heard of the 5 Cs. They're there as well. I mean, there's a lot of new people trying to take on the traditional 4 Ps of product, price, place, and promotion. But it's certainly about thinking more broadly about how you're engaging with your customer base, how you're increasing that customer base, how you're creating loyalty within that customer base, and that's more than just the 4 Ps can offer, really. It kind of brings us to these terms that we see all the time, this kind of downstream, and we say upstream marketing, kind of marketing jargon. I hear it a lot. I hear about the funnel a lot. What do the terms downstream and upstream marketing really mean?
Well, I can only really tell you what they mean to me, and I think that they're slightly fancy terms that refer to strategic aspects of marketing on the one level and more tactical or operational aspects of marketing on the other. So you have the upstream stuff, which we focus more on the strategic decisions that marketers need to make in terms of the products that they're bringing to the market and the markets that they're trying to get involved in. Downstream would be more focused on the tactics, promotional aspects, to try and ensure that You know, I think the term arises first and foremost from the rise of digital and how popular that is, and because a lot of people are now are putting compelling offers on the internet and trying to encourage people to go through the sales funnel to buy something at the end of it. So there's a lot of focus now on the downstream activities, converting those prospects into sales and so forth, which is a valid aspect of marketing. But you know, it's not just about that either. It's about the strategic aspects of the discipline as well. So hopefully, you know, our programs will address both of those imperatives for students.
Exactly. I mean, we also, you know, there's another term that is very, very pervasive, demand generation marketing, which is kind of what we're moving into now. I mean, I suppose what we kind of can look at as well with this is, you know, what is new versus old. You know, before you get a product and you'd sell the attributes down, you know, down the stream. You know, this Coca-Cola is fantastic. It'll make you feel alive. It's great. It's refreshing, and you just sell it down the stream. Now we get a person drinking the can of Coca-Cola who's a user, who's an influencer, talking about how the new vanilla Coke is his favorite Coke, and then vanilla Coke sales go up. And there's no big marketing, no big flashy video campaign, no big director is brought in to film some amazing video with an amazing jingle. It's just some guy who's really popular telling you, hey, you should drink this. Just like those guys who are playing computer games saying, hey, I'm really good at this computer game. Why don't you try to take me on? It's a very different way of just going out and telling people, this is the best game. You've really got to buy it. So I think I think what we're leaning towards, I mean, every question is just basically, it's quite scary as saying marketers have to work harder now to get people's attention. Do you think that's true?
That's quite interesting, because I was reading a report recently from McKinsey, and it says that in the States, or wherever the survey was conducted, 87% of consumers shop around. So on the one hand, there's a lot of focus on these downstream activities, trying to get people to stay loyal, you know, trying to use data so that we know everything about prospects and consumers, trying to get them to buy again and to buy more. But on the other hand, consumers now are availing of technology to use to search elsewhere for offers. You know, they're clued in about the fact that there's a better offer around the corner. So marketers are chasing consumers who are in turn being lured away by other offers. So, you know, I suppose the message to prospective marketers is not to get somewhat seduced slightly by all these downstream activities and by the emphasis on downstream, but to get your strategy right in the first place, so that, you know, you can change focus if you need to, as and when you need to.
Exactly. It's all about flexibility and having a large toolbox at your disposal, and that's, you know, why I tell people, if you really want to learn something, go and do a master's, go and study and dive into it for 1 or 2 years, because, you know, the devil is in the detail. Now, the phrase content is king is used often. One of my favorite phrases, I believe in this phrase. I'm a content development manager. It's my job. So what does this mean, content is king? Why do I hear people saying it?
Yeah, again, it's one of those terms that has arisen perhaps for the same reason that the emphasis has arisen now on downstream marketing. It acknowledges that digital is hugely important in the modern marketing mix, and in search engines, which are becoming more sophisticated, brands need to develop rich content in order to be found. So the emphasis is not just on transmitting informational stuff about yourself, but to really tell compelling brand stories to people, and to try and sound authentic as well. Now, this is a massive challenge for marketers. The Content Marketing Institute was saying recently that more and more business-to-business content marketers are finding that their strategies are more effective, but they're starting off from a very low base. This originally presented a serious challenge to marketing people. And what's happening, it's becoming actually more challenging, because, you know, the standard blogs released a couple of times a week or a couple of times a month are not where it's at now. Consumers are becoming more sophisticated. They expect really rich and authentic and compelling content on video, on other means as well. So marketers, again, have to play catch up with this stuff. Some of the brands do it really well, but then you have to ask yourself, well, you know, are they the ones that have the resources and the capabilities to try and meet these expectations? Are the smaller SMEs able to do this and able to do it authentically and compellingly? It's a big question, and it's a massive challenge for the marketing profession.
I mean, it's a huge challenge. Facebook eats content as much content as you can feed it. It will eat, and you constantly have to feed that beast. Same goes for websites. It's interesting that you say about the blog and the old school blog not being as effective. You need to create a whole ecosystem now to grab customers and in whatever interest they might have, whether they just want to watch 30 seconds of something, or whether they want to sit down like this and watch 20 minutes, half an hour of something what we'd call long form content, read a proper article rather than just watch a 1-minute video of FAQs, for example.
Yeah.
So it requires all of that. I mean, if we just take the webinar as a case study example for anyone who's watching, some of you might be watching live and you'll get the benefit of that. Some of you might be watching a recording. You might be watching this through Facebook. You could be watching this through a website, but you might also have clicked on a long form article. That's a new kind of digital blog that has the ability to register to this webinar to watch the recording. You can download the article, you can click on a program if you're interested in it. And we have to do all these things now in marketing to serve our consumer, because our consumers are extremely demanding. And that leads nicely into the segue. How do you think consumer behavior is changing now in light of all this advancement?
Well, I suppose that consumers are becoming more marketing literate. They understand the sort of promotions that we devise to try and enrapture them, and they're becoming more demanding. Expectations are higher than ever. Markets are becoming more and more competitive and more transparent. And again, it's back to this whole issue about technology as well. Marketers trying to encourage customer loyalty. But in some ways, technology is a driver of disloyalty as well, because it's it knocks down barriers and enables us to see what the competition's offering, and to be sure that there's something better or cheaper around the corner. So I always like to think of sort of the image of a consumer running around a racetrack and teams of marketers chasing them, and trying to keep pace with them. We were talking just in the last segment there about the content and the importance of content. What happens now if people are doing their searches through Alexa or similar voice-enabled types of media? How are marketers going to respond to that? I was reading an article again in the same source that that this is a pioneering type of area for organizations, the likes of the American Heart Organization, for example, one organization that apparently are doing this well. So they've offered details on doing CPR through Alexa, and you can expect more and more brands to be sort of trying to follow suit in this way. But it's extremely difficult to do it authentically, to do it consistently, and to get it right.
Exactly, and as technology advances, there are first movers that come in, and if you're studying on an MBA or anything like that, you'll learn about first mover advantage, second mover advantage, technical obsolescence, and all these things have a big impact on an organization. You can be on the back foot, and then what are you going to do in your marketing department if your product, which you thought was the best product at the best price, no longer is the best product at the best price? There are certainly a lot of examples out there of companies that are the market leaders that aren't necessarily selling the best products at the best price. One of the reasons for that is how they approach marketing in a holistic way, and also how they approach data. Data. The Economist called it the world's most important commodity this year. What role does data play now in marketing practices, Cormac?
Absolutely. I mean, the data is every so often in marketing you get one or two buzz terms that
data is king.
For the last couple of years, it's definitely been data. And I suppose, again, driven by technology, we have the capacity now to follow and map out entire customer journeys as customers interface with technology. But it can be difficult to do that, to store all the data, to make sense of it. You need to have people in there who've got a different array of skill sets. That if you think of marketing people as having skills which are informed by both art and science, the data is coming very much from the scientific perspective as well. So you need people who, if they're not number crunchers themselves, they understand that sort of terminology and can marry it with the creativity required in order to make sense of the customer journeys and to, you know, give customers refreshed and compelling propositions.
Exactly. I mean, if you're a marketer, I suppose you have to cozy up to those guys in business intelligence because they're the kind of analytical yin to your creative yang in terms of finding out what's going on with the people you're trying to win over.
Well, one of the most interesting presentations that comes out of Silicon Valley every year, I think it's a company called Kleiner Perkins, and they have a fresh presentation about internet trends every year, and it's presented by a lady called Mary Meeker. So in one of her slides, I found it quite interesting. Our students can access it through the internet. There was basically a graphic describing how we have a sort of love-hate relationship with data and privacy and things like that as consumers. So on the one hand, we're a wee bit reluctant to tell everything that we should be keeping private to brands. But on the other hand, we can see the real value that brands can offer us as consumers if they know a lot about us, extremely compelling propositions. If they know, what our needs are, what our preferences are, what our purchasing history is, they're really well placed now to keep us on board and to try and offer us more stuff or better stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, I always get slightly annoyed if my wife has heavily been using my Spotify account, because then what that does is that alters my Discover Weekly playlist that they give me. And instead of all the usual music that I listen to, it's now got the influence of the music that my wife listens to. And God forbid if my child gets hold of it, then it will have all of nursery rhymes and all of that content in, because Spotify are trying to figure out who I am.
Yeah. And I mean, you can expect them to be getting even more proficient at knowing exactly who you are and being able to map out your entire customer journey in such a way that, they'll be trying to keep you on board for as long as they can.
Well, that's it. Now, it's a big worded concept here, service dominant logic, and we've kind of been talking about it for this whole time, really. But what is service dominant logic, and how do we as marketers use it?
Yeah, it's interesting the way a lot of these themes have overlapped, really. Um, I think the seminal piece on this came out around about 2004 or thereabouts, and original marketing thinking, you see, was based on theorists such as Smith, who put the emphasis on trading goods in terms of their value attached to free trade. But a lot of marketers now are coming, around and saying, look, listen, it's not just about the goods. In fact, there's a lot of goods out there which are functionally quite comparable. It's not just about how goods are presented to the marketplace, but it's how consumers take those goods and the experiences they have with them and the services they perceive are attached to them and so forth. So this is where the current thinking lies. Marketers need to differentiate themselves from competitors, and service is now one aspect which serves as the basis for differentiation. I think the term also accounts for the fact that services globally are growing, especially in mature economies. So, there's less probably emphasis on goods and more on services, especially for more affluent types of consumer. What happens is when we get a wee bit richer, we tend to buy less stuff and we're more interested in high value services, for example, healthcare and things like that. And as general segments of the consumer population tend to follow what more affluent segments do. So globally, you can expect services to become more and more important, and people to judge those services, not in terms of a discrete product that they receive, but in terms of their experience with the product and how they value their experience with the product. And I mean, we can't really see any change from that. This sort of idea has got to progress in the future, given the way that our economy is moving.
I mean, I agree. I think service dominant logic, certainly from my MBA, was the big takeaway for me. That and Carl Weick's sense making, but that's another webinar entirely. Service dominant logic, looking through everything through the lens of service, through creating value. I think it's Vargo and Lush. I quoted them quite a lot of times in in my dissertation, Vargo and Lush looked at this concept of value creation, looking at not just the product in an exchange, but everything around that product. Like if we look at this picture on this slide here, back in the days, you probably wouldn't market a donut by showing a half-eaten donut crumpled in some guy's hand. That's probably not the way you'd advertise that product. But now we're getting into the experience of that person sitting there eating that donut. It's a bit more evocative. It's a different type of marketing. We're also looking at how he's doing that. We're seeing a picture of him doing that at the same time. So is that kind of, as you said before, we're more marketing savvy now as consumers. So we kind of like to see the mechanisms behind the scenes, which is very interesting.
And back again to our original point about the importance of viewing marketing in a holistic sense as well. What we talk about sort of social responsible marketing as one of the sort of pillars of an holistic marketing perspective. So if you're going into your coffee shop there with your donut, what way are you going to dispose of your plastic coffee cup that you're getting? You know, people are becoming more and more conscious about this. It's not the coffee that you're getting as well, it's a whole experience of using it. And of course, there are opportunities there for people who can address these wants, needs, and aspirations, especially of new generations of consumers who are more tuned into this sort of lexicon.
So, like anything, it's being part of something. It's tribalism.
Absolutely.
So, bit of a nefarious picture here. Considering the global environment, what trends should marketers really be aware of? What's going on in marketing now that I should really pay attention to?
Well, I suppose we've covered quite a few trends in the global environment. We're talking about technology and data. I mean, the thing about marketing is it's a very current and contemporary type of course. And you know, for anybody interested in what's going on in the world, you know, they'll always pick up something of interest. So you've got, you know, ongoing trade disputes between the USA and China. You know, who's going to be winners, who's going to be losers out of that? New alignments in world trade, growing concerns.
Russian meddling.
Russian, yeah, all the rest of it.
All that data.
Global concerns about privacy, you know, with the recent Facebook stuff. But again, it seems that consumers are willing, new generations of consumers are willing to compromise on this issue if they see the value that we as marketers can provide to them and that it's done ethically.
I mean, that's Facebook almost a case in point. Billions of subscribers, biggest drop in share value of any company ever, but they're still there, and we give them a lot of our data, as we do a lot of companies. If we look at the FANGs, the big companies, Amazon, Google, Netflix, Facebook, Alphabet, the amount of data that we're giving just to those 5 companies alone is incredible. But now they've tightened up a bit, haven't they, Cormac, with our GDPR regulations that have come in across Europe. What do they mean for all of us who are trying to reach our customers?
Yeah, well, I think that they're going to. They've obviously changed the landscape somewhat in the UK, you know, and they've put this sort of balance of power somewhat in favor of consumers. But I think longer term, you know, I think we're pretty much reconciled to the fact that we need to give a lot of ourselves away to these brands in terms of the information, the private information that we provide. And I don't really see that changing any stage soon. But it'll be interesting to see whether, you know, regulatory authorities are going to take a more robust stand against the misuse of data, especially in terms of how it's used for marketing purposes.
Exactly. And that's when, you know, ethics come in, transparency comes in as well. You know, before, when I used to run webinars last year, people used to have to opt out of being sent communications. Now you have to opt in. So even everyone who's watching this today has opted in, and that's purely through GDPR regulations. And that's so that you can find out about the next webinar and when it's on, or go and read about the programs, or get an article or newsletter. But that's all has to be within the compliance of GDPR, because data is now considered, you know, a very important commodity, and our personal data as consumers should be guarded, and is now starting to be. Now, how then are we going to tie this in terms of going and doing something meaningful in terms of our study? How does an MBA, for example, that we've been chatting about, or an MSc in marketing or strategic marketing, for example, prepare these professionals for the landscape we've just talked about, this highly competitive landscape full of demanding consumers and endless technological advancement?
Yes. Well, the argument I would make to people is that even if you're not particularly interested in practicing as a marketing person, it's important that all business practitioners understand marketing. It's vital to the lifeblood of all organizations. I mean, the point we were making earlier is that marketing should not be siloed into a functional area. Marketing ethos, a marketing orientation should pervade the entire organization. So I think it's important that all people within organizations of any size have an appreciation of marketing. And it's interesting actually to see some of the people who participate with me on the courses, the MBA courses and master's courses. Some of them have technical backgrounds. So I've got people on MBA programs who are maybe geologists and scientists and people who are not working in the commercial arena. But I think they understand what marketing is about because they're consumers and because they're interested in wider cultural issues. They can see that marketing is very much reflective of the changing global environment in which we all live and work. So it's particularly interesting if you're interested in current affairs and how technology is shaping the world. And the other thing that I would say is it encourages, the way we've set up the courses is that it encourages people to think critically about issues.
Mm.
A lot of our assignments are set up in such a way that there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but they're still good and bad answers. And
Yeah, the right way to attack the answer. Yeah.
The good responses show evidence of critical reflection, that people have thought deeply about the world in which they live and how best they could frame a response to the environment in which they do business. So it's about really helping people to focus on the higher order skills, critical assessment, critical reflection, evaluation. There's not necessarily a right or wrong, but it gives people an appreciation of current topical issues, and it helps them to develop these higher level critical skills, I think.
Exactly.
So,
What better way to kind of learn about digital marketing than online? I mean, we offer fantastic, online postgraduate courses. Our MBA, our masters courses in marketing are online, and what that means often, I'm sure you'd agree, Cormac, is that we have students from everywhere, all corners of the world, and at varying different levels of experience, and that's fantastic because I find that the online student's a bit older, maybe a bit more experienced than the student coming out from campus, and that way I can get a bit more diversity, which I think nowadays is quite important, especially for
yeah,
those working in those global corporations.
absolutely. And I never stop learning from the experience of my students. We get students from all parts of the world as well who've got different experiences as well, and they're throwing something. Each one's throwing something unique into the mix. And our students on these courses, although it's a very flexible and in a sense it's quite an independent learning experience. And we encourage students to learn from the experience of others. That there are group work tasks, there are discussion questions where people can meet each other and learn from different perspectives. For example, the Masters in International Marketing, we encourage people to focus not just on tried and tested organizations that seem to be the focus for case studies, but to look at emerging economies around the world.
Exactly.
Don't look at the McDonald's, look at the Alibabas. Look at these organizations that are now, they're growing significantly and they're changing the shape of the modern business environment. And I think it's exciting for people maybe who have, similar cultural backgrounds to us to learn about new markets, new products, new services.
Exactly. Exactly. I took great joy in my MBA that I had someone in my class who was one of the marketing directors for Taco Bell Canada, and I thought, wow, I learned everything about the quick serving restaurant industry, which is really interesting. And she taught me loads of things, loads of different things from her experience. And I thought, I'm in class with this person, and then that could be you guys as well. There are plenty of programs, and these type of professionals are the type of professionals that be studying on the program. So the caliber is very high in the teaching as well as in the engagement. We don't have time to waste as mature students or lifelong learners or people who are working and studying full time, studying part time whilst working full time. We don't have the luxury of just kind of glancing at something. If we're going to commit to something, we're going to be engaged and we're going to commit. And that's the kind of level that you get of commitment in the classroom, which I really like, because when I was studying for my undergraduate, 1920, 21, the lecture halls were half full. People didn't want to raise questions. Everyone was a bit tired. But it's very different online. People are engaged. They're excited to talk about their experiences. As we wrap up the presentation today, the question it's always lovely to end on in these type of things is where are we going with this? So, how do you think marketing will evolve in the future?
Well, I suppose we've already mentioned some of the key themes. There's going to be a growing emphasis on services, simply because services are a greater feature of the world economy now. I think I read somewhere recently that as a percentage of global exported trade, services rose from 9% in 1970 to 20% in 2014. So services are on the rise. They're going to become more important. We mentioned at the start of the presentation that we talked about the holistic marketing approach. We talked about socially responsible marketing. So that's, those sort of themes are going to come to the fore even more. I'm not sure that marketers have sort of developed particularly robust responses to this sustainability challenge. You see, for example, Adidas has developed an ultra boost shoe that's made from recycled ocean plastic.
Yeah.
These sort of things are, there seem to be piecemeal efforts here and there. What at the point I was making to you earlier, if you're going into your cafe and you're buying, coffee cups that can't be recycled and packaging that can't be reused and stuff like that, how are we going to really seek to address those issues to try and encourage consumers to embrace the sustainability agenda? So that's one of the key things. We talked about data as well, and the fact that marketers are going to have to become cognizant of data, understand it, and be able to use it properly and creatively. And I think I think it's going to be back to basics to an extent as well. So even though there'll be emphasis on data privacy and all the rest of it, people will also be looking at relationships, which is at the core of marketing theory. How do you develop long-term enduring relationships with real human beings? In this technical world in which we all inhabit, there are opportunities for people in small organizations and big organizations who can do relationship marketing right to thrive, I think. And I think there's going to be some renewed thought about the importance of that and emphasis on that.
Exactly. I mean, you could just look at Starbucks. I mean, I think Starbucks a few weeks ago said they were going to remove plastic straws. So that's something that's there for those that are, conscious, as we all should be, about the environment. But then, there's a big controversy with Starbucks, as you well know, about removing 2 African American customers that were there, and there was a racial incident. They removed them improperly, and then immediately after that, there's a big PR campaign. They went and did sensitivity and racial sensitivity training at all of their offices. That's kind of what companies have to do nowadays if they want to keep their customers. They have to prove to us that they're conscious. Is that right?
Absolutely, I think so. And it's a case where they're really, they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. You talk about the Starbucks and the measures that they took to address the issue in the States, and then whatever they did was also denigrated as well. So again, it's trying to convey those messages of authenticity. That's really important in a sort of cynical type of world in which we all live and do business.
We've got to believe that Starbucks want to transform, not just see it on a piece of paper, for example.
Yeah, and it's getting more and more difficult for them to prove to us that they're genuinely interested in doing that.
Exactly. Well, conscious capitalism is certainly on the rise indeed. And that was our mini marketing class as well. If you want to find out more about our fantastic courses, you can go to edology.com. We have all of our affiliate partners who offer online postgraduate and undergraduate courses. We have 7 pillars here, from law and criminology, fashion and media, business and management, marketing, communications, accounting and finance, and psychology. But today, as well as computing, today we're talking about marketing. So you can just go into your program here. In the drop down, you can have a look at marketing communications. Some of these programs Mr. Austin, you're teaching on these programs yourself. You can view the programs and actually make an application. If you do that, you'll be called or contacted by an education consultant who will speak to you about making an informed choice. You might be thinking about the MBA, for example. You might be thinking about the MSc in marketing. Which one's really right for you? We have to do a lot of research and some conversations to make that happen. And we have these fantastic education consultants who can speak to you about that. Make sure you make the right choice. As you hover over, you can see how much the course costs, what the minimum and maximum duration are. With online study, you can pick, whether you're going to do the course in that 18 months or spread it longer over 36 months. That affects obviously your payment as well as how many hours a week you're going to be working. If you want to look at other programs such as business and management, you can just drop down here and to find your course, and you can find a whole group of lovely programs there as well, and some testimonials from the programs. If you're here for career advice, that's fantastic as well. Looking at marketing, we can get some great stats here that can help you understand what you need to do with your professional development. If you love being creative, enjoy selling, have a way with words, a marketing degree will take you to your dream career. So here we go. 59.4% of full-time work, 6 months after graduation, average salaries, etc., etc. If you want to go and check out our blog like we were talking about before, we have these wonderful live blogs, more than just an article here. You can also click, you can watch the webinar as well. You can download the article, and it's more of a long form article here where we talk about all the issues that were discussed today in greater length. If you're hungry to learn more, throw us a like, see us on Facebook. We've just published this now. And if you like some of the programs, go and check out the programs below, and you can make an application. We'll speak to you. So that was today's Marketing Masterclass. Cormac, thank you very, very much for delivering that for us. And we hope to have you back as we dive into some different issues in marketing for Edology Live.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's been the Edology Live webinar. I'm Joe O'Brien. Thank you very much. We'll see you all in class. Thank you and goodbye.